Okay.
Anyone not ready? Alright. Welcome to the world order of algorithmic society. In this world, identity no longer renders coherent through signification. Instead, moving toward the digital, the human is rendered irrelevant. Beyond its informatic composition, a bundle of complex biological code, identity, sociality, and politics are stripped down to information flows and transmitted along a network of control, turning individuals into individuals via feedback loops of data. Modes of resistance become iterative data points that are recaptured by racial algorithmic control. We stand now on the edge of non-existence and hallucination that, if I were to acknowledge, annihilates me. Then abject and objection are my safeguards and primers of my culture. The question of what we ought to do now follows a line of syllogistic reasoning that maintains the backdrop of a world in which anti-black brutality is ritualized within the sadistic information game. This particular technology of violence generates an ethos of survival used to justify anti-black biometrics. All analysis must challenge cybernetics itself for risk reabsorption. That's Bell 18. It isn't necessary to bring the value theory of value up to date. Workers who work to the creation of bodies and they're receiving their wages. The value extraction instead of taking place only during labor. It can take place anywhere in the network. We see vision code. The labor is still the source of all value that we have, and is structurally reduced to a biochip, increasingly ubiquitous, computational armature that extracts their its activity producing of valorization, knowing of cellularized all commodities that rely on the integration of various moments of valorization tethered to financial terms. So concerning the informatic production, think not just of Disney's Frozen, but also of Apple and Google with its tendrils of rare earth mine factory servicing national geopolitics schools that rentier model intellect as failance of blackness, demonstrate technologies of racialization, planetary management, and monopoly cartels of biometrics, of data valence, of precisely the modern metrics evaluation, the measure of the very metabolism of society organized by computational capital. The 2 billion planets dispossessed are both the condition and result of the computational regime. The coded codes of race, gender, nation, and class emerge the footprint of value from the species metabolism, runs the treadmill of the world computer, the capital, thus extended the informatics machine of associated social difference, algorithmic management of race, causes the cloud of information, and set everyone to work generating more information in the name of sorting it off, and often survival. The history of capital itself is bathed in blood, and thus plea bargains are the ultimate panoptic instruments. The state is no longer required to prove guilt because defendants are coerced into policing themselves, just like the invisibility of guards in the panoptic tower. The uncertainty of trial is accompanying disproportionate punishment allows prosecutors to make defendants submit to their will. The plea bargain regime, likewise a tool of disciplinary power, allows for the autonomous individualization of punishment using criteria that is free from scrutiny. The prisoner's admission of guilt in turn legitimizes the state's extortion of arbitrary power. Systemic inequity seen as racial sentencing disparities can be observed from its disciplinary function of minor over minorities, yet cannot be specifically identified and therefore cannot be addressed. Annexation, like panopticism, can be understood as a modality of disciplinary power. This exemplifies the way the grammar of politics always erases black perspective of reality. The digital walls of the cybernetic university guard its own subjectivity via a rational model of deliberation that always pathologizes black students and is titrated with highly fungible vectors of sexism. We must realize that debasement of colonial computation operates via the reduction of black life to signify like a straightened within liberal taxonomies of openness and speller. And 18. Despite the brilliance of scholars like Cynthia Hartman, someone contains error transcription, it's only originally stored. Despite the poetic presence of horrific informatic reductions of Africans, cargoes, brutally measured halls, and full numbers of murders, accounting ledgers, and the reduction of language to different content in different numbers, we must sound the algorithms and audit the computational unconscious language written by vectors machine has limited the ellipsis purge of any remainder or excess, which despite these faints and glimmers need the world remind you as God is dead, telos is no more, and computation reigns today. Real-time financialized network simulation operates in a turn of ones and zeros, increasingly removed from anything historical significance of meanings, one-dimensional without content. In the name of efficiency, in the name of shipping the greatest number of signs as small as possible, container deciding what we comprehended normal. Manchester Horton Spiller so eloquently schools for readers that order with human sequence written in blood represents for African and indigenous people scene of actual mutilation, dismemberment, and exile. What differences might have emerged in the predictable language included slave narratives and space students, slave speech, but as a psychotic discourse of American grammar, Spiller so definitely gains unworthy constructed American semiotic iteration that continues to disavow the presence of historical violence of slavery and simultaneously performs the recapitulation of white supremacy in every possible meaning with the autocorrect in your iPhone work differently. Racism sediments the architectural of modern machines, both in terms of the original text and in terms of the good subject. They text themselves and put into association that affect the outputs attention reproduce their own semiotic architecture. Thus the 1AC is radical refusal. Vote for politics of black study. You should refuse that which has been refused to you. This is not about being anything in particular. Care will only emerge when we realize that the structures we oppose are fucked up for everyone. Albeit way worse for certain individuals. We have to leave behind the desire to organize a reality into a programmable fashion. Instead, engage in the undercommons is the only way to reclaim agency for minority bodies. Steal the functionality of the plea bargain apparatus to make it collapse upon itself. Thus, the world of Alice is set on the ethicality of the cybernetic university that's Halstrom 13. When we refuse, we create dissonance along studies to continue. The other comments is not wrong. We critique it. Our goal is not to end troubles, but to end the world that created those troubles as one that must be opposed. Martin Harding refused the logic that stages that the absence of plans and mode of solving politics. The mission is to recognize that when you seek to make things better, you're not just doing it for the other, you're also doing it for yourself. While men may think you're returning to feminism, while white people think they're opposing racism, no one will be able to tear shit down until they realize that the structures they oppose are not only bad for some of us, they're bad for all of us. Your hierarchies are bad for men as well as for women, as well as really bad for the rest of us. Coalition mergers for recognition that's fucked up for you. We must change things or die. All of us. Revolution comes in a form we cannot yet imagine. We prepare for what will come and entering society. When you learn how to be with and for, you will also feel fear, concern, and disorientation. Disorientation necessary because you'll no longer be in a location moving from one forward to another. Instead, you will be part of the movement of things, and one way to be an outlaw social life of nothing. It is display fugitivity. Self-fugitivity is not only escape fugitivity. It is separate from settling. We together in homelessness. We not idealize homelessness. Homelessness is a state of disposition that we seek to honor. Common a positionality from which either emerges neither self-consciousness nor knowledge to the other, but a position that seeks somewhere else on the unasked question. Our fantasies will come from the hold. The hold is the hold of the slave ship, but also the hold that we have on reality. Fixing the hold that they have on us, and the hold we decide to forego, and the other preferring is to touch, to be with, to love.
Okay. Everybody good?
Yep.
Okay. I guess first, is racism bad?
Like, obviously.
Okay, why?
Because it causes massive amounts of suffering.
Okay, how is what you just said different from the syllogistic reasoning that the 1AC criticizes?
Because the syllogistic reasoning that the 1AC criticizes is that of assuming that because things can be categorized, those categories have values that are intrinsically good, i.e. defining blackness to operate in certain ways through semiotic architectures that the 1AC criticizes.
Can you unpack that a little bit to me, like explain like
yeah.
five?
So the Beller evidence says that in the name of like productivity and efficiency, we reduced the slaves on the ships to mere numbers and statistics that we let anything to be done to. Black men in the status quo are coded as hyper-aggressive. Black women are hyper-sexualized. These are all ways that like semiotic codes operate that whiteness assumes to be true.
Why does that indict all of syllogistic reasoning?
Doesn't indict all of syllogistic reasoning.
Okay, then what part of it?
The part that I just explained. The way that racialized systems of coding operate and dominate certain minority bodies.
Cool. Why is disciplinary or all forms of disciplinary power bad?
Because they have their root in a larger structure of anti-blackness.
Every single form of disciplinary power has its...
Can you give me an example of one that's not?
Well, I mean, like, norms that are like racism is bad.
Racism is bad.
Yeah.
Why is that a disciplinary function?
I guess that I'm just saying norms.
What do you think discipline means?
Okay, this is silly. Or like anti-lynching
I don't
laws.
think it's silly at all.
Anti-lynching laws.
Anti-lynching laws?
Yeah.
You know those didn't pass, right? Congress just
Yeah,
apologized for not passing them.
Yeah, I know. It'd probably be a good idea to pass them, though. Why would that be a bad...
Why do you think it hasn't passed?
Well, I guess, why would it be a bad form of disciplinary control?
Why? No, the question is, why the fuck haven't those been passed yet? And, like, why did you bring them up?
Okay, well, because they'd be a good idea.
They'd be a good idea. It seems like a lot of things would be a good idea.
Does the 1AC make an analogy between plea bargaining or the courtroom and debate?
Analogy?
Yeah. Like a
No.
comparison.
Like they're different things.
Okay,
Sure.
I guess you say that we should realize that debate's mode of colonial computation operates via the reduction of black lives as a signifier. How does that relate to plea bargaining?
How does that relate to plea bargaining?
Yeah.
In the way that when a black person goes to except with plea bargaining, the pre-given apparatus of information production, the ones that code black bodies in certain ways, those are seen before the person themselves.
Okay.
That's why there's a huge disparity in sentencing and punishment.
The 1AC makes claims about communication being or not being valuable and sort of information being packaged as signifiers. Why is that necessarily true?
Why is that? Our
Or
argument
is all forms of communication equally packaged in the same way?
Our argument is that information has its root in anti-blackness. The way in which the drive for efficient use of deliberation and rational model of deliberations are centered around a psychotic discourse of American grammar that cannot understand black suffering.
I'm going to take a little bit from 14. One off in the case.
So one in the case.
Yep.
I was waiting for this moment.
I've been waiting for this moment.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, this is more important. Oh my god, I'm so bad. I was like, you look good, you look like you're together.
I'm sorry, this is the
No.
one.
I'm trying, you know. I'm dissertating right now, so just like my entire committee, which isn't bad. Like I've already done the prospectus defense with my committee, so. Oh yeah. We should.
Something to do about the stuff you like.
You know, it's some queer shit. No.
I'm gonna catch it.
All right, yeah, for sure. Where you stand?
I'm okay. I'm
All right, yeah.
I just sent out a second version of it, just so you know.
You got my number, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
just
got it.
text me.
No, I was gonna catch it this weekend anyway.
Okay, cool. Good deal.
No, the door closed.
Yeah. It's the same dog. You send it twice. Is it this?
Everybody good? Yeah.
One off case.
Yeah. Yes. You're good, right? Cool. The Parkland Dissent Union is Parkland shooting has invigorated a new wave of student activism aimed at transforming gun culture. Fox and 18, the mass shooting of student thugs sparked something. It asks students across the country, students who recognize that years of government action, they're prepared to take Washington to task over. They're proving themselves to be capable of political organization and action. The Parkland survivors have the potential to break through the street as deciding gun debate, but offering fresh solutions. This new generation of activists has the potential to radically shift the gun control debate by seeing involves dominating us. Much of it as a result of bad laws, our gun problem is not fixed, but that's the fast progress we've seen in a long time. The real question is whether this can be sustained. If you gun control movement says the AFI has the potential to nudge our national discourse over guns until activists fundamentally reshape gun laws. The AFI is a linked uniqueness for our dissent. Historical amnesia is the norm now due to oversaturation of facts, but a revitalized movement can jumpstart politics of real reform. Jerome in 18, the ongoing crisis of democracies, two marks the racial memory in this politics of the age of Donald Trump history simply disappears the system. This is saying especially true in the context of the current culture. Guns return repeated on children in the United States, 188 of U.S. schools and universities. There will be no escape from mass violence and close weeks within the broader historical, economic, and political context of Americans watching, listening, and so is Trump listening to the patent testimony of parents who responded by advocating for teachers to be armed. Instead of confronting the roots of violence, he followed the lines of the NRA and addressing the epidemic mass shootings with a call for more guns. First step, expose their lives, make their faces public, use the new media to organize across the lines and work like hell to build them out of office. At the same time, the imagine and fight for reform is not of American society, but restructuring along the lines of truly democratic order. And civil rights struggles show how student activism is necessary and sufficient to transform society. Even perceived immutable structures have cracked. Student activists are uniquely positioned to exploit. Schmidt in 18, one of the most important developments within the American students as leaders. When African American college students in the South launched their college counter-resistance movement, the largest civil rights afterwards held the Supreme Court to order public schools desegregated, but schools in the South remained segregated in a matter of weeks. That struggle, racial equality was immediate, the right action, particularly against indispensable tools, but student activists fought against not only whites but the older generation of African American students were finding new points of vulnerability. Their actions aroused outpoints of support from procrastination, fundamental frustration, and hope. Truly, students out initiatives, there's better world of term frustration and mobilization. Students are burdened about the pessimism and fatalism of our old generation. They have injecting new passion and urgency to face the idealism of extraordinary youth, to expose the vulnerability of some immovable and radical black movements must engage with the political to be successful. Gun violence and anti-blackness are intimately intertwined, and forcing discussions of race. Anti-gun violence movements are key to material change. Taylor in 18, those young black boys turn out and background to about the belief that institutions should and could improve the lives of ordinary Americans. Young black people under rebellion with a black man as president of the black movement. Undermine the ISIS goal role as a global moral authority. The emergence of student anti-gun mobilizations given the sense that Trump is vulnerable. If these mobilizations fundamentally force a deeper engagement with the causes of guns, radical shouldn't abandon the young people who come back in consciousness. They need to engage, educate, and most importantly, be there. We have a role to play, especially in this discussion, by forcing issues to return at the very beginning of the social awakening. Let's encourage development. And gun culture is a thread that unites American violence from slavery to the Middle East. Challenging it is crucial. Hedges and anti-proliferation of guns, much of the mission of rugged individual that advise the Americans combating powerless. Gun ownership is a point tool of repression. American violence has always been fatal. Anti-violence is part of colonial militias, the U.S. Army, state patrols, hard mercenaries, and guns was a historical nation. Us to take them by the lines that defense our culture and economic the national means of people unaware of its myths likely to continue to loom at the race to fight other vision of the world continues to color perception of reality from true ideologies. So does the U.S. ruling class for wealth. For instance, how history gun culture permitted dispossessed public short of economic and political power to revel in the flames of omnipotence, to go to rise America with their divinity and purification anointed by God was civilization to remake the world. Violence in America is an infection of domination, racism, hate told guns as average around 37,000 years. Advancing gun ownership by the few boy people of the background underclass guns have really been deployed against the state community scramble. This scary grace much of the country power place. America becomes the second amendment is about codifying white vigilantes in the law. The lone wolf killers celebrated by financial psychology. Not the case. At the top, the whole top of the case is just assertion after assertion of how the world operates without any reasoning or data about why it's true. The one will do the same thing, but if they do use syllogistic reasoning to justify their theory, they double-turn themselves because they say that that's been having distinguished how what they do is different from what they criticize. If you can distinguish between the world being ours, you should go negative. The world about should be devoted for the side who endures the best, charity the least of the best material consequence. Anything else is self-serving and arbitrary. One, student debates over suffering are key. Taking particular students key walk into the dealing with suffering is fantastic. We may have neither invented nor caused this. There's a political moral. This is a discussion and commitment to action one can made by taking a speaking to others. Bojack believes distinction by two extreme bullying, action on arms like bringing an illusion. We must orient our to action. Even this is only by speaking in support. We live in a proper world and must be content with rest and compassion in our politics. Always particularly oriented to doing something separate man with a community involved in democracy. Citizens have a role to play in loving governance, altering commitment at least self-absorption into political action by offering involvement. Two, fugitivity is a flawed method of political engagement that makes neoliberal violence inevitable. 11, 15, the modern Hardy call for moving together their imagination is definitely the inside. They're kind of the outcomes of the biography of traditional cognitive deviant studies. It's important to consider the limits of refusal as a strategy. Treaty can be a way to reinforce the test, but it's also a way of acknowledging one's institutional position, the real difference between the inside and the outside, together political and anthropological made it difficult to address the argumentation, the violence of knowledge production, such as the double untaken central knowledge to escape the radically different relation because we are its contemporary instantiation and our implication in existing terms is also a form of violence. 3, there are one issue sources fragmented and polemic. You should heavily discount it. Looking in 18, the message is better represents the culmination of research and more of a first order attempt to gather and disperse those. Ballard's book is fragmented and especially developing a topic by quickly moving on to you because it mentioned any examples of the arguments of reading loss that historical record born and the polemic points provocative terms without delving into deeply and how these terms may be developed. 4, Bojack's arguments are huge generalizations. 1 and 4, Bojack's responses are virtually pre-programmed. We don't attempts are predestined to fill Bojack. Ruby is not a single conversation with a real American. Bojack really said human actions are powerless to implement meaningful social changes on the impossibility of progressive face vocal change readers. One of the complexes of reaction. Rhetoric, the futility thesis according to which his information is attempts to transform society condemn up here to failure. 5, their over-reliance on affect is bad. Literally every single lynching begin with this will be fun, which is that some inclusion of reason is key to decision making. 6, no impact or result on injury doesn't determine identity. Injury criminals are critical to challenging oppression in the context of criminal justice. It's not just some fantastical representation to outline realistic restrictions of quality of life. CV and 5, we can acknowledge injury and identity without being vetted. The facts of identity can be public without there being a claim of one's time is essentially without something as a narcissistic attachment to one's victimhood. Identity claims are an important part of political resistance necessary to challenging relations of oppression and domination. 7, not all forms of discipline are bad. Things like anti-lynching laws, norms that racism are bad, gun control, etc. prove that discipline can be good. They're just being an analogy between really bad forms of disciplinary power, like the penal system and debate, but that is a shallow analogy because they both just rely on their use of information. 8, Bojack is wrong about media. He is dualistic, not dialectic. Counter and 7, he identifies the economy, the duality, the good and the Bojack thought is radically dualistic, siding with appearance against beyond an illusion of a truth. This evil over good, certainty and truth are impossible, and virtue takes the side of evolution as truth. The argument of religion should be philosophical grounds and engage the saliency and effects. 9, they cannot not be ordered. The judge will always try to order the one he see in order to make sense. Even the phrase radical refuse is an action for the judge. Voting for the F would still have an affirmation of meaning. In order to make a decision, the judge has to order impacts and determine which ones have some sort of priority in order to make a decision. 10, meaning will continue. They're just a gesture that can never really be reproduced. Yes, they had a poetic moment, but just because they have a poetic moment doesn't mean that the non-poetic speech won't continue. Capital can reproduce whatever meaning it wants. There was no charity cannibalism impact in the one as far as I can tell, but even if there is, they should specifically have to prove why the specific context of gun control debates are bad, or why those sort of movements reproduce charity cannibalism, which I don't think that they've done. And if it does, they link to their own critique because they talk about forms of anti-black violence.
Any good?
Yeah.
Alright, where did the 1AC say anything about Bojack?
You didn't, but a lot of your stuff is based on Bojack theories.
What?
The arguments about signifiers and information.
So Bojack is the only one who theorizes semiotics now?
No,
Black
but it's
people
based
do
on.
that?
I would say that there wasn't a warrant in the 1AC, but if there would be, it would be based on Bojack.
Why did you read answers if there wasn't a warrant in the 1AC?
Because you're inevitably going to make a warrant in the 1AR, and I'd rather not read all of this in the 2AR.
Why do you think the 1AC is a Bojack graph?
Well, because the claims that you make are
What
also
claims?
Bojack.
What claims?
So the stuff at the top about information being dissuasive and the way that it's just...
Where does the 1AC say information is dissuasive?
So I get that you're...
You're answering the wrong fucking app, dude.
I don't think I am. I get that your app is a combination of Moten, Harney, and Bojack. And so
This just proves that, like, you read my wiki and it says 1AC Bojack, just put there.
I didn't get your shit from the wiki. Somebody else emailed it to me, so wrong.
Right. Well, it doesn't matter. It just proves how you care more about like what things
I
signify.
disagree. I think you're trying to prove a point in it.
We'll have that. We'll have that debate.
Okay.
Sure. Anti-lynching laws again. I guess like if discipline can sometimes be good, why are those a thing? If like, and is your argument that racism no longer exists because like somehow
Obviously
this
not.
huge,
Well,
this anti-racist
obviously
norm,
not. And just because something doesn't exist doesn't mean that it can't be good.
Why do those things not exist?
Because white people can be racist a lot of the time.
All right. Cool. So then, charity. Okay, I don't know where you're getting this. What's the link to the
No,
dissent?
I'm preempting you because that's what you read
What's
earlier
the
as well.
What's the link to the dissent?
To the dissent, well, first the sort of disciplinary power bad argument, because gun control would be an example of that. The sort of refusal to engage in the political and the pull away from
What is
that.
political?
I think that in the context of the dissent, the political would be like engagement with legal structures.
Is that the only thing people are allowed to engage?
No.
Cool. And what's the link?
Well, our argument is that you don't engage with it, but rather actively refuse it, which is bad,
How do we actively refuse it?
because you don't engage with it. Like you actively.
So you don't engage in equals
You see that? You see that? You see
refusal?
that the political, i.e., the forms of information that exist in the political, are bad things because they're.
Yeah, so we change that, and then we engage with the political.
I don't think that's what the app says, and I don't think you get to make that as a firm because the dissent doesn't have all. But like,
What? We were literally like repurpose the plea bargaining apparatus for black people. Why is that not like, what you're arguing?
Listen, so there are parts of the app where you're like, all forms of disciplinary power. Come on, they're all bad. And gun control.
Can you
obviously
read
is-
some lines?
Yes, I can.
Alright, cool.
Okay. Sanitization, like panopticism, can be understood as a modality of disciplinary power. This exemplifies the way that the grammar of politics always erases the black perspective of reality. The digital laws of the 7
So is your argument panopticism good?
What?
Is your argument panopticism good?
No, not always. Like there can be
It
some
can be good?
There can be some good forms of disciplinary power, yes, even if there are some bad ones.
Cool. I'll take some pro.
Everybody has his offenses. Everyone watching on YouTube, that was Jonas.
This one YouTube?
I mean, it's not the extreme.
Damn, YouTube. Jonas LaBella.
I would like to remind everybody that in NDCA semis, Jonas Rivera did stick his hand in a thing of ice that was a whole thing. That video is also online. Jonas knows what I'm talking about.
There was all over YouTube.
Actually, there's no audio. So.
Oh, yeah, we got that.
I can keep it.
Bro, I just got to Kentucky an hour and a half ago.
Bro, I can't even tell you what happened to me yesterday.
My flight got canceled because of air.
You're still truck 340.
159 and 14.
Yes.
Yeah, bro. Same thing with me. They put me on another one in Detroit. I got to Detroit. They were like, you can get it. So I
I'm
just
sending Florida.
I was like, I have the ticket. They were like, United didn't send us that.
I'm not paying for a fucking thing.
So I had to pay. I had to pay $400.
You
Right
call
there.
United to make
They
sure.
were like, or else you can't get it until tomorrow. So I was gonna miss the whole thing.
Put it like this, United is going to pay me some.
United is gonna owe
I'm
you a lot of money,
vacation.
bro.
I'm on vacation after graduation. If they fund that,
Mom fucked me up.
But I miss my senior's first round at the TLC. You know what I mean?
I know, bro.
I
I was gonna miss this shit if I didn't get. I was at the security gate. They were like, "There's no need to run." The flight already took off, but I still ran. I got there just in
My
time.
flight from Chicago this morning got delayed 3 hours. I was supposed to be here at 10:30. I got here at 1:40. Good luck, everybody.
Here, you want to just push the door?
Yeah, no, I got it.
Oh.
Does anyone not ready?
It's the order.
Case K or case DH?
The cybernetic categorization of reality operates via the coding of minorities, such as the black debaters are expected to read Wilderson in the name of efficiency and productivity, reduce slaves to a mere number that were being shipped like cargo. This is a global white supremacist imaginary that is the basis for all discrimination. Vote have to endorse the politics of black study that embraces blackness as beyond representation in order to scramble the code of an anti-black deliberative process. This fugitive process creates fear and disorientation within systems of power, which is necessary to foster revolutionary politics and ethos of care, which is a prerequisite to active to ethical political processes. The foundation, the function of the undercommons provides black bodies with unique cultural strategies of education, survival, and self-care life for optimal strategizing against the colonial apparatus of information. The line violated, when they say syllogistic reasoning is sometimes good, yes, we think, but particularity is key to analyze the historicity of anti-blackness and its relationship to modern liberalism. They say suffering reps could we exist. We agree, you're answering the wrong app. You say fugitivity is flawed. The app is not just fugitivity, it's more than that. It's about developing an ethic of care and revolutionary politics through organizing. However, Sim specifically says that we have to refuse the logic that not planning anything in specific right now is equal to nothing political at all. Politicizing the affirmative is the only way to actualize the mode of politics that resist the fractal fascism of the screen and the dominance of information in society, which is not to say that we can never engage politics, but rather, especially when we're being fucking recorded right now, it's necessary to confront the unethicality of this space. Otherwise, their politics only allow debaters to watch away their own shame and complicity and violence, which allows the university to do horrible things and exploit the suffering of others, which is why we're a prerequisite to your suffering goods arguments. You say Kukreja is wrong and we're a fractured polemic. This is just a straw person who obviously didn't understand Beller's book. Also, we're a combination of this theory with Halsterom. Our utilization of it is a conversation that is uniquely good for debate. You say Baudrillard's in relation, also not responsive. This is a pathologization of the 1AC, which is a voting issue, because it proves how people and minorities are overcoded by what they are expected to do. Instead, you should vote after refuses and say that we're allowed to think something other than what we are expected of, which is an independent reason to vote. You say some discipline, good, prove it. All of these things, the examples you listed have not been passed. Also, your other voter answers are still not responsive. I didn't read a charity cannibalism argument, and nothing else, like your inevitability claims, don't deal with the particularity of the ask claims. Go to the dissent. There is no link. We're not Afripist or Baudrillard. They make them answer our specific cybernetic literature, which necessitates an investigation in the uncommon mode of relationality before engaging in politics. It's just a prerequisite question, which means that we can solve your app. We think that radical politics, like the Black Lives Matter and the Black radical tradition, are all good things. We are not politically pessimistic to the point where we can never engage in political, but rather think that an analysis of its convergence with algorithmic flows of information and control are a prerequisite to effective policymaking, which means that even if the affirmative doesn't engage the political, we don't stop other people from doing so. We just think that our movement isn't necessarily good and something that our community should have to research via an FBL, which means that there's no link and all of your impacts are not unique. And even if they do link or find lines in the 1AC that say politics are irredeemable, the withering away of humanity, humanism captures all of humanism's benefits while critical of its racialized history, which means that we repurpose their thought process for black people. It's Everhart, for black and minorities. It's Everhart 16. To give a fuller account of human winter, recognize the potential for losing vitality, motive, rationality, and the risk of withering that allows species to flourish. One of despite the uneven power dynamics, we managed to relate and cross difference. The category of humans become central without having unpacked colonial histories and critiques of them by me. Just like so, I wouldn't have an appreciation to expand upon the human idea, rather risk of losing it all on influence, which is a reason like why even they have no explanation for why these things happen in the first place. We are an analysis of how the world has come to be through a series of through the psychotic grammar of American politics that began with the exclusion of the slave. Yes, things might be different now because we're not Afripists, but we do think that to engage the political effectively, we need to think about those things and believe in each other first before we can believe in the political. Disavowing that is how the pathologization of minorities occurs and allows anti-black racism to continue.
So we're clear, can you explain this Everhart card to me? 5 again.
Yeah. It just says that, like, that to account for humanism and humanist properties, we need to analyze the racial history of it first, which means that we can be fully critical of it, yes, but like that should not be taken literally into the sense that like never deal with those things, rather critical of it insofar as that we can repurpose them for our own use. Which is kind of the 1AC argument about how we take the apparatus of plea bargaining and use it against itself. Like those dominant logic syllogism, that's all of those things we repurpose through faith in our community and people of color.
swear I had 4 minutes.
I'd probably put in my time as yours.
Dissent case.
Are there any cards though?
Yeah, I sent them.
Is that the bottom of the dog?
It's at the top. Should be at least.
Did it not show up in yours? It should be like at the very top. I don't think it showed up here.
I'm gonna resend it. My bad.
Yeah, I just got the same doc.
Sorry. Okay, that one is definitely the correct one.
If that doesn't work, maybe you have to do the whole close and then reopen.
Yeah.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Cool. The dissent always enters the case. Guns are the symbolic representation of settler colonial violence that justifies violent military interventions abroad and is responsible for 37,000 deaths per year. It also fractures communities by pitting atomized individuals against one another, which makes their strategy of fugitivity impossible. Guns fuel fear of the underclass, which prevents the recognition that the world is best up for all of us collectively, which is the crucial internal link that their Halstrom evidence identifies. Our Hedges evidence is fantastic on this question, indicates that gun violence and militia violence is what ties all of American hatred together, which is that we do have an explanation for why these things happen. It's because Americans believe that they were anointed by God and Western civilization to beat up the savages and kill people, and it is their God-given right to do so, but they've conceded that those sorts of things are never used against the upper class, but rather used to fracture the underclass, which makes their F impossible. It means that you should vote negative on presumption because the status quo would resolve their impact, but voting F breaks all those coalitions that are necessary for their solvency. The Parkland movement will be successful now and defeat gun culture, but engagement with the law and political organizations are key. The NRL laws are fracturing right now, but resistance is fragile and requires specific laws because pessimism and fatalism are self-fulfilling and play right into the NRA's hands. There are claims that we can wait, but just have to do it now. Will be addressed below, but our argument is that it is happening right now, which means collective action right now is key. Otherwise, you see the political that allow them to solidify their arguments again. The movement proves that information is persuasive and that black progress is possible within the law. Images of citizens during the civil rights movement resulted in an outpouring of empathy from across the country. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, but it disproves their thesis of disciplinary control and laws being bad, and it means that we can solve since the combination of frustration along with the status quo, the combination of frustration with the status quo along with optimism help create a better future and fuel those movements, which is the conceded Schmidt and Taylor evidence. The gun movement and related protests have made Trump uniquely seem vulnerable, even if he's dumb and might oppose gun control, even if white people were racist with anti-lynching laws. The fact that he had to meet with students and initially propose things like bump stock bans and raising the age limit proves that the movement is working, that progress in the law is being productive in the status quo, as well as the fact that some disciplinary control can be good. We don't have to win a link argument because the F refuses all of that stuff, and gun control is an example of it. Their only response is that why haven't those things happened in the status quo? Yes, white people might be racist, but it would still be a good idea and argument that those collective movements are being done by both class coalitions and racial coalitions, which means that it would not be racist like the past was. The line battling. The first is that there's no specific specific link because they said there's no immediate specific articulation as to why they're radical politics now. It's key. I've already addressed that above, but I'll read a card, and now is key. Bump in 18, political destruction seems more possible than ever. Many of the factors come out with Trump is shifting political hearts. Republican students are taking political action just as political walls are cracked. There's one other fact that's very specific. They have a president who often watches cable news, often the parents first that they're able to speak directly to Trump. The students have to be able to help influence them. Also, what happens? How long does it take to reorient ourselves back to the political after 180 other mass shootings where gun culture is already solidified? At the point that we have one that the dissent turns the case, also it also proves that they will never be able to return to the political because their project will never be completed. The second argument is that it's the same sort of prerequisite argument that I have down. There was zero explanation of what this means, why the case always or how the case would return to the political. We should draw a line between the 1 error and the 2 error, not allow any new 2 arguments because the work of the devil. So putting on them would make you put less above the standard for what a new 2 argument isn't whether it's entirely new from the 1 error to the 2 error, but whether your understanding of it radically changes from the 1 error to the 2 error. Given the complexity and brevity of these 1 error arguments that necessarily have to be the case, you should strike them from your foe. The Everhard evidence, as I understood it in cross, is that we need a critical repurposing of humanism would still allow us to access those same coalitions. The arguments I made above all respond back to this because now it's key and the repurposing would take a while, and the dissent turning the case also goes back, but the unique correlations between the current gun culture movements are key because they already have momentum in the status quo. The AF would wreck that and have to build it back up from scratch. There's a unique dissent to their movement. The last thing is that there's no explanation for why it's happening. I already identified the settlerism impact above, but even so, focus on root causes is bad. We need to articulate specific legislation that can avoid these pitfalls. 418, the students must put in could be an important the reason to the role of the left is pointed the root cause of non-immediate legislative reforms is misguided. The left should not put forth its own debates. This means that taking in the game aim with the gun industry seeming correct to liberals makes it more likely the reactionary reforms that have measures will give the debate and discussion should revolve precisely about which reforms to be raised rather than such the path to be decided with fewer guns. The possibility to raise up repression. The gun should be raised at least as much as utterly is the time for the left to be involved in political demands directly against the gun industry. The case page. Look, the role of the left should be to vote for the team that best produces material consequences. Anything else is self-serving and arbitrary. If they win an argument or explain how their worldview is different that relies on the syllogistically reasoning that the one AC criticized in their own arguments, they have not identified how they are different from that, and there was no explanation of that in the 1 hour, which is they should not allow it in the 2 AR because I don't get a 3 R to respond to it. They still rely on the same things, i.e. the app would solve something, and then we could address all the problems, which are the same things that they critique, even if and they haven't identified how, even if it's different in content, they haven't identified how it's necessarily different in form. They say that there's the line. The number 2, which the number 2 is an index to their specific method of fugitivity is best, and violence is inevitable. We should recognize that our role in that violence is also inevitable. Their exclusive focus on the outside prevents us from actually escaping in a radical direction because we've already implicated ourselves when they refuse to accept the implication that everybody else already has. Their idea that yes, the structures screw over some people, rather than we screw over people as well would necessarily fracture the correlations that they say are necessarily key. The straw person argument, no, or Larkin evidence indicates that their case literally gives 0 examples of why their theory is true, coupled with the thing I said at the very top of the case about no warranting is damning for them because it proves they should not have voted affirmative because they have no reason why their things are true. They assert things without any warranting behind them, which is that there's no reason to accept them. I've done detailed warranting analysis, so you should prefer the dissent claims over the Wallen evidence. I'm not going to go for this, but this pathologization that says obviously silly since I didn't see your wiki. I got the ad from Aida, and if this is true that you should vote have to refuse what people should be, you should vote negative because Harvard Westlake didn't read framework and campus, and they have no evidence to be necessarily pathologize them. And we read a dissent, and even in classes I said I understand that your app is a combination of Mooney, Harding, and Boudreaux, and they even said right above this argument the app does do things like say the information based on Boudreaux's communication theory, which proves that there's which proves that we're not that sort of thing. The no resentment or impact was conceded, which is the number 6, indicates that the focus on revenge does not need to entirely consume identity, which is that the case doesn't have an impact. We can be angry about things, but still have some sort of agency.
How much did I have? I have you at 340.
Are you good? You have something?
I have like 15 seconds. Okay. It's the case, then the DA. Is anyone not ready? Cool.
The cybernetic opera categorization of reality operates by the reduction of blackness to a signifier that is traded around within liberal taxonomies of openness mode. Affirmative to refuse. This logic is a kind of radical refusal that invests faith in each other and engagement through engagement with the undercommons. This is the only way to foster revolutionary politics by realizing that the academy that we're all part of is all fucked up and it hurts us all. This is the only way to hold our community responsible and foster a political engagement in this space, which is the reason why we are a prerequisite to every single argument they've been, and they have never dealt with the particularity of our case. So you can immediately vote app on zero risk of a link, which means that we're the only ones with material consequences, while they're all abstractions and reductionism are already proven out. They said there's zero examples. However, the one I argue a ton of them, i.e. how the black community are expected to read Wilderson, or how black people are hypersexualized and made hyper-aggressive, or how in the name of productivity we reduced Africans to mere numbers in the slave ship and inflicted massive amounts of violence, threw them overboard so that things could be more efficient. These are all ways the racial history of informatics influences our politics and the things that we must think through. Otherwise, we are doomed to repeating that cycle of pathology that causes massive amounts of harm to black and other minorities, which is something that they kind of allow to keep happening in this space, whereas they don't have it internally to any kind of political spillover. We actually do by saying these things that are motivating and can inspire people, which means that any risk outweighs
Like their offense. Go to the dissent. They say it's a double turn. They've never answered our argument about how it's the particularities of one instance. Go to the next stop.
You're reaching really hard, or reaching way too far here. There's no link to the DA. The 1AC builds a new revolutionary politics to engage with the undercommons that is consistent with what you have said is necessary. You conceded that the Halstrom amendment says that we must refuse the logic that not planning in terms of what you think it means to plan, but being together in the movement of things is not political. It is, and you have to affirmatively politicize that, which means that you're voting for Harvard Westlake is a terrible idea in this instance because it disavows black politics and is the pathologization of the 1AC, which is kind of slaking harm. Your ability to still affirm blackness, despite the way that the undercommon is always pushed to the margins, is what is necessary to stop the psychotic grammar of American politics in this space, which is necessary there. They say it means that the dissent turns case because we can't engage fugitivity. You probably should read some fucking books, dude. Like the undercommon is what exists despite that hyper surveillance and always open positionality to death. It's the thing that exists beyond that, which is why blackness has to be understood as beyond representation and unintelligibility to disrupt the community norms that the 1NC simply sustains by allowing people to
Abstract the conversation and reduce it. You've also conceded that your failure to analyze the racialized history of informatics means that in debate people will get away with keep doing fucked up shit, like striking all black judges and minorities in the name of real politics, where in fact they ignore that our politics can just be just as effective to do things like the gun ban because we are able to revolutionize that. People don't have faith now. Saying things like the affirmative is empowering, which makes people do things.
So I'll start off with a couple things. First, start with the 2 and R. I think the 2 and R is very confusing. I think you're not explaining the link to the disad, and like the 2 and R to me is 3 minutes of gun culture framing, which is just so confusing because like at the end of the day, it all boils down to like gun culture is racist, and the app says like America is inherently racist. So I'm just confused what the impact framing of the 2 and R is. I just don't know what the link to this disad is. I'm trying to figure it out. It's like your row evidence of the app is linked uniqueness for a disad to spark movements against Trump. I'm just so confused why the app is not a movement in and of itself. The app is not a form of community and care that should happen for minorities that allows them to mobilize themselves. Like, I just don't know why the app does not allow the linked uniqueness that your drone is to say. I don't think the app is also pessimism as well. So a lot of the stuff about BLM and student activism, I think the app would agree. Like, yeah, guns are bad. We should get rid of them. Student activism is good. It's just that there's a prior question that needs to be asked before we actually affirm these political movements. And I think that's just the one argument the 2 and R doesn't answer, which is in the 1AR, which is like there's a prerequisite framework question that we should ask ourselves before we just think about materialism. So when the 2 and R talks about materialism, it doesn't talk about the app's prerequisite argument towards materialism. The app is overly complicated in its terminology, and I think that gets you, Vishan. Like, this app is literally saying black people should be whatever they want. They should have their own subjectivity. They should interpret whatever they want. We shouldn't pathologize them. They shouldn't pathologize themselves. This evidence pretty clearly says that. I think it's using some information and informatics stuff and this cybernetrics university stuff. At the end of the day, it boils down to, should people of color be able to have their own subjective interpretations of themselves and not be pathologized? And the app is like, yes. To me, that is like intuitively so true, it warrants some merit of a framework argument in the 1 and C. It's like, yeah, obviously that's true. It's either like a pessimistic argument in the 1 and C that says that is false and has a clear distinction, that we disagree with that, or a framework argument that says you can't say that. You can't say that people of color should be who they want to be, because that is way too intuitive for you to just win off in a competitive debate round, given the app has no other external offense. Like, I don't see the app having any offense other than, we should affirm people should care about themselves and their communities. Like, yeah, no duh, right? So the app says it in a really cool way, and I really like the terminology of the app, but I just think it makes it harder to see the very basic statement that I think this app is making. So let's talk about the disad a little bit. I think your arguments about real reform, again, are tainted by a lot of the 1AR arguments. I think you need a link in the 2AR. I think the 1AR is saying that they're a prerequisite, they are not Afro-pessimism or optimism, so they can engage in the political. The case evidence in the 1AR, I think, or in the 1 and C, I think you had 10 reasons that I don't think turn the app on any level. I think all of these 10 reasons are either A, not specific to black communities that should care about themselves, or B, not showing why the app is bad. Like, these ad hominems to Baudrillard don't get you anywhere, in my opinion. These arguments about, like, the syllogism debate, I just think it's kind of silly. I don't know why this would turn the app. You're hedging your bets a lot on the 2 and on this overview, which is like, the 1AR shouldn't be able to make syllogistic statements about intuitive things so that double binds their argument. I think they're criticizing syllogism as it's used by large institutions to make categories that we think should go X to Y to Z, and that reforming itself, because when it shouldn't be X to Y to Z, when it should be X to Z instead of Y, which to me is a metaphor for blackness shouldn't be something logical, it should be something that it wants to be, that's when the entire system collapses. That's when you can't take that. That's when the logic is too much. I don't think saying racism is bad or anti-lynching is bad is a manifestation of what I just said in terms of the metaphor that would describe syllogism. I think the 2 and R needs to have an impact that turns the app as well. Because even if you win a link, I just don't know why the gun culture turns the app either. Like, I think the app has made some prior questions about blackness and like how it's pathologized in America. That gun culture would just be a result of that pathology, in my opinion, as well. Because you're not making that many arguments about like why gun culture frames other things besides minorities of color getting shot and killed and things like that. So yeah, I just don't think there's a disad turns the case argument. The final thing I'll say before questions is Ronan, I think your 1ER needs to be a little bit more organized in explaining these impacts because I think your 1ER needs to have a line that says there are 3 impacts to the app, A, B, C. These are the reasons you go first. And I think you get to that, but you say it in such a complicated way that it makes the debate a little bit hard to understand for why the app is a good idea. Similar with the 2NR, I think if you're going to go roll about materialism, that should be at the top, not after you do the impact rating on the dis app, and make me believe that the app isn't materialistic, right? Because at the end of the day, I have no idea why the app is not materialistic or why self-care community isn't a form of some interpretation of materialism.
I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the app is black people should be able to do whatever they want to, why would gun control not be an example of something that the app would disagree with?
Confused.
If the app is black people should be able to do whatever they want, right?
By meaning do whatever they want, I mean they should be whoever they want.
Okay.
There shouldn't be one interpretation of what is blackness.
What is blackness, right?
Right.
I guess that it makes a sort of broader statement about disciplinary control, like surveillance and things like that, being bad as well, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Why would a law that the government passes that says that you can't own a gun, or in order to own a gun you have to do these things, not be something that the app would criticize?
The app would I think the app is criticizing all laws.
It's criticizing all laws?
Yes. I mean, I feel like the app is criticizing America. The app is criticizing liberal institutions.
Okay, right. So if the app is criticizing liberal institutions and the dissent is engage with liberal institutions, if you see the dissent as just a giant seed the political argument, why would
What's
that
the impact of that? Right? To me, if your argument is that we need to engage with liberal institutions to stop gun culture, I don't know why that turns the app.
Right, I guess. So I guess first question on the link level, because I might not have articulated this correctly.
Right.
If the dissent is just see the political thing, we should engage with liberal institutions, and the app is liberal institutions bad, would that be a link?
If the app is liberal institutions bad, and the neg impact turns that says liberal institutions good, yeah.
Right, okay. Do you think that that's what the dissent says and the app says?
To an extent, I'm confused with the argument that the app is linked uniqueness for our disapp because I don't think the app is fully disavowing themselves from institutions. I think they're saying BLM is good, but we need to question things about the movement. I think the 1ER is saying we need to question movements before we just blindly engage them, which means I don't think they're liberal. I think they say liberal institutions bad. I don't think they say we should never engage with liberal institutions.
Okay, so that engagement with institutions is not
holistically bad if we follow the prerequisite steps in the affirmative, which is self-care, community, journalistic activities.
So if an articulation of the dissent that's the Parkland movement or whatever necessarily requires the engagement with liberal institutions that they criticize because it relies on people because in crossing to the 1AC2 there's a whole anti-lynching laws haven't been passed. Why do you think that is? It's because people in the Congress are messed up.
Right.
Would that be we are appealing to those people in Congress to do something? Appealing to those people in liberal institutions, which is something that the app criticizes. That would mean that they dissent with necessarily, right?
I think a lot better. I think if you explained it in the context of the app fundamentally says these liberal institutions don't do anything, and we have empirical evidence that says if we do these things that the disapp says they will do something, then I think you have a link to the disapp. The problem is, I think you have to pin the app down to say we will never engage with these institutions. Because even if the app condemns them holistically, the app can get up and say some movements for people of color are good if we follow the steps in the affirmative, which I think is not a contradiction with condemning those institutions.
I got you.
Because at that point, it's black people finding a way to live for themselves, and if they have to engage with institutions on some levels, that is what they would have to do in order to not be condemned in one form of how they understand it.
I got you. Okay. And then the dissent turns the case stuff. If the gun culture impact is it makes people turn against each other and suspicious of each other, and it's an every man for himself Wild West type thing, why would that not turn community?
So I think Ronan is getting at that, and I think when you say people turn against each other, I think that would be similar to something black on black violence or something like that in terms of gun culture specifically. I think Ronan would be winning a very much larger claim that the reason that shit happens is because of institutional violence and trapping black people in segregated areas and making sure that they have access to guns and drugs, and that allows violence to continue. If you're going for an argument that gun culture creates violence in communities, I think the broader question would be asked is why is that violence? Why are those communities affected by that violence? Besides gun culture being the sole reason for that, and I think there's broader structural claims that the act can make for that, and I think that's what the 1AR is doing, right? Because when he's saying why aren't anti-lynching laws passed, it's because it assumes that we don't want them to be passed. Right? So I think it would assume the same thing. Like, if we want gun culture to stop, it wouldn't stop because certain institutions don't allow it to stop.
Okay. And then I know that this is all predicated on the link, but if the link was one and the articulation of the impact was like, yes, institutions are the ones that cause things like gun violence, but the lack of gun control is a form of institutional violence that the act cannot solve because of the link argument.
Right.
Do you think that would be an example of the disintermediate case?
Yeah, I think you would need an impact though that like quantifies to some level, because then you would be winning that gun culture is bad and that the disad would reject it. I just need to know why that necessarily turns the act, because I feel like that has to show why the act makes things worse for people of color, right? And like empirically, maybe you can show that happens, but I just don't think empirics are the right way to go through this, because all of the offense in the act is about authors that are theorizing about the ontology, right, the nature of blackness, not this empirical dichotomy between. Because I feel like if you get up and you're like, the disad turns the case, more black people will die because of guns, the 2ARs or the 1AR would just shit on that, right? Like quite hysterically shit on that, because that wouldn't be the terminal impact, that would be the framing issue in this debate. So, I mean, I personally am just not a fan of this disad or a disad premised off liberal organizations. I think you need a framework. You need a radically either different approach. It doesn't have to be a critique, but a different set of agreements, and that can be this disad, but there needs to be something else other than gun culture, something that's more proximate to weighing with the impacts of the act, or a framework argument that just says you cannot get up and say that people should be whatever they want, because that would force us to say that black people shouldn't live their own lives, which is obviously kind of ridiculous on some levels.
Thanks. So, just a quick question. Other than like, I guess, so given that the 1C lacks a framework argument, do you think it'd be a lot more efficient if the 1AR just like pivoted it to just like, this is a debate about debate, and that's all that matters?
Yeah, I actually do, because I think a lot of the 1AC offense is about debate pathologizing black people. Like, plea bargainings is intertwined with the debate space, and I don't think that's explained that well, but I think it's explained enough for a huge 1AR pivot on that. And yeah, because if it's about this space at that point, I don't think that this ad would matter.
Yeah. Okay, so that and make the 1AR more structured in terms of isolating the impacts of the top. Is there anything else?
Yeah, so I mean, this pathology of the 1AC argument, I think you could have impacted a little bit more. That has a better warrant for it. I also think you would criticize the response, because the 2NR is like, someone sent me the app, we didn't see the wiki, you should be lucky Harvard Westlake didn't read framework and cap against it. Like, I found that kind of pathologizing, in my opinion, right? Like,
I thought about that too, yeah.
And I felt like that would have been a great trade. You should be lucky I did not force you to defend the state, and I did not read the same basic strat that everyone reads. You should be lucky I read a gun culture dissent. That's how you should feel. And I would have got up and be like, who the fuck? Like you should not
that's
read
like
framework.
That's the 2AR. If that's the 2AR, that's like, would that be like?
I mean, that's an easy 2AR. Because like that to me is pathology. Like when he said that, I looked up and I was just like, I should feel lucky that you didn't read this argument against me. And granted, you can answer that argument, right? And I think a strong, hardline framework defense would answer that argument. But I think if you make pathology the YCA voting issue, which I think was very smart to do, you definitely need to answer his response to that, because it was just more pathologizing. Yeah. The other thing is, like, I do think the 2AR needs to explain the impact of the act better, because the Halstrom evidence is like we shouldn't plan for things, but then the Hartman 16 evidence says it exemplifies how we get rid of black life and liberal tax. There's just a lot of stuff in this app, and ultimately I boil it down to people should do whatever they want and we should have singular interpretations. But there's a lot of stuff that I think on a 3-person panel, one would be very confused, right? Without you isolating impact.
Just like simplify the terminology.
Yeah, or like maybe like say contention 1 in the app, and like if you can still do this critical stuff, that at least it's structured. So like contention 1 was this impact, contention 2 was the Hartman impact, contention 3 was the undercommon. But also this undercommon stuff isn't even extended in the 1ARs, and like it's just a lot of stuff in here, right? Like there's undercommons. There's
I guess I'll start like by organizing the 1AC.
Yeah, I'm not sure what this ethicality of cyber trick university is.
I
I think you should ask what that means, right? Like,
Okay, yeah.
there's a lot of stuff in this app, and I think it's very confusing. I think it warrants a framework argument, but I think it also warrants massive 1AR pivots that were not in this debate, but were. But 1AR was good. It's just more stuff thrown at me from the 1AC and not really collapsing to a terminal impact that decides why the ballot matters.
So kind of if I split the 1AC up into different parts, it'll make it more clear which way the 1AR wants to go.
Yeah. And it'll isolate the different impacts of the app. Because I don't know if I should vote off Hartman. I don't know if I should vote off the ethicality argument. I don't know if I should vote off the Beller 18 argument. Right? There's just like it all seems like offense. But some of it also seems like framing, and that's because these cards are very long and the tags are long. I just think it needs to structure it a little bit different, at least for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you.
Thanks.